but that's a conscious decision. You have
Yeah,
to do that
of course.
every day. And so that's why it's written on my chest, is so that every day when I get up and I see it in the mirror, it's like, what is the legacy I'm going to leave behind? But in that advice, I think I took it a little too literally, and really ran at everything, and put can I swear on this? Are we swearing? Yeah.
I literally opened with what the
Oh, yeah, that's what. Okay, that's very good, because I was like, I really like just figured out like, how am I going to put my whole into everything, and how am I going to try to do as much as possible, where I really wish I would have kind of refined it a little bit and said, how do I do a couple things really great.
but at the same time, you can look back and be like, "Oh, I should have refined a few things." But as a third party who's seen you, I've known you now for 7, 8 years. I look at you and I'm like, "This person is doing everything under the sun, is like you said, putting your whole into it." And to me, that's inspirational because I've kind of been on this one track of, I do design, I do a few things here and there, like within that
Yeah.
world. You're like across the board. And to me, that's something that I look at. I'm like, I should push myself more to do things outside of my comfort zone. So, you can say, oh, like I should have, but I'm like, get it, girl. Like,
Um, well, girl, let me tell you, on the other side, it is exhausting.
welcome to another episode of Graphic Content, the podcast where we talk all things who, why, and what the fuck. For over 10 years, today's guest has led and partnered with numerous Pride and 2S LGBTQ plus organizations, working with agencies such as Tourism Saskatoon and Saskatoon Pride. From corporate to nonprofit, he's helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for Canadian 2S LGBTQIA plus organizations. I fucking said that. And businesses, and was awarded the title of Mr. Gay Canada in 2013, as well as the CBC Saskatchewan Future 40 Under 40 winner. He is a stage 4 cancer survivor who has also had the opportunity to help 2S LGBTQIA plus entrepreneurs connect and grow with their businesses with corporate partners through diverse procurement across Canada by working with entrepreneurs and businesses from coast to coast with the Canadian 2S LGBTQIA plus Chamber of Commerce, CGLCC.
I really should have cleaned this up for you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In 2020, he founded In Her Shoes Productions, Toronto's all-new queer-owned television production and creative collective. He's also worked in many facets of production and works as a creative and story producer and storyteller. Welcome to Graphic Content, Danny Papadatos.
Oh my god, that was a lot. Thank you.
That's a
That's.
mouthful.
I mean, I really need I feel like I really need to go back and clean that up. That I haven't touched that in a while for sure.
No, but honestly, I love it. That's the longest intro that I've given to date. But but listen, it makes sense for who you are. You're a storyteller, and it was a full 360 of where you've come from and where you are today.
I feel like it's also I'm really I've been more of a cat of nine lives, or jack of all trades. Like, I feel like it's interesting. It's been a really wonderful journey, but I have had a lot of different gigs, which is really, it's wild now that when you hear somebody say it out loud, you don't necessarily process the chapters in which are part of the great book that you create, right?
But sometimes we need that. You almost need it to be said back to you to take a minute to be like, you know what? I've fucking done the thing. I've done
Yeah.
all of these things. There's just been so many chapters.
You never really, when you're in it, you don't really think about some of those memories and those moments anymore. Like, it's really hard to even, like when you talk about Mr. Gay Canada or whatever, like, I have tattoos on my body that remind me of my cancer, and, you know, my hair reminds me of my cancer.
Yeah.
That was part of my life, but it really just feels so far removed from a life that I've now built for myself. And even Mr. Gay Canada, being in the middle of Europe in swimsuits with men from all over and doing
Obsessed.
photo shoots and whatever. It was like the wild, as like a guy that used to be, 240 some, 50 some pounds, and very self-conscious and whatever, to be there and all that stuff. It's wild to think of your life when you look at it in these different interesting chapters, I guess.
I think it's amazing because to me, the idea of being in the same, vocation for 50, 40 years, I'm like, I could never do it. Although, in my world, I've been doing it now for 15 plus years, but at the same time, there's so much variety in what I do. But for you, you've really worn so many different hats. Why? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things. I think that there is the opportunity to find and build community. Like if you want to get real about it, I mean, I come from a broken home. My
Mhm.
parents are separated or were divorced at a young age, and I wasn't very close with my family. I was the youngest of five kids, 6 years between me and my next eldest sibling, and so I was left alone a lot. And
Mm.
so I think as a kid, the idea of being able to find community in something and build community in something was always very enticing for me. And I think after cancer, like I had stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was in my neck, my chest, my abs, my back, my bones. I was diagnosed at the age of 21 after being in the hospital for chronic back pain and nobody being able to figure it out. And then all of a sudden my life changed. I was all of a sudden, after they diagnosed it, I was in the hospital the next week talking about sperm donation and what that would look like because they didn't know how long, et cetera, et cetera. And so at the age of 21, I had really kind of had to figure out what that meant. And so my family, it kind of really was nice was, growing up Greek Orthodox and queer, I was kind of shunned from my family when I came out. They
Mhm.
didn't really, it was a really hard coming out experience. My family didn't really understand it. They didn't really love it. They didn't all of that fun stuff that came along with that. And there was a point where I was, I had moved out on my own and had to figure out my own way for a while and all that. And it wasn't until I think cancer actually that brought me back to my family. Kind of it brought us all kind of together, and realizing that things were better together than apart. And so cancer, everything happens for a reason and all that
Yes.
stuff. But I do think that this once cancer hit, then and I came through it on the other side, there was this idea of I take do everything. You
Yes.
know, I have a tattoo across my chest that says "Life is waiting," and it's a quote from a woman that was sitting next to me through my last chemo session, and I just remember the day that I went to her and I said we were sitting in the chairs, and I said I was using cancer almost as a crutch to not have to figure out what I was going to have to do next because I couldn't figure out who I was anymore and
Yeah.
what I wanted. And she said, "Well, Danny, life is waiting for you, but you have to get up every day and decide the person you want to be or the legacy that you want to leave behind. But that's a conscious decision. You have
Yeah,
to do that
of course.
every day. And so that's why it's written on my chest. And so that every day when I get up and I see it in the mirror, it's like, what is the legacy I'm going to leave behind? But in that advice, I think I took it a little too literally and really ran at everything and put like, can I swear on this? Are we swearing? Yeah.
I literally opened with what the
Oh, yeah, that's what. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, because I was like, I really like just figured out like how am I going to put my whole into everything, and how am I going to try to do as much as possible. Where I really wish I would have kind of refined it a little bit and said, how do I do a couple things really great? But I mean, what do you do? I mean, at the same time, I've lived a really wonderful life that I'm really, really proud of, and I've got to do some really cool.
listen, we have our own perceptions of ourselves and our paths and our trajectories. But at the same time, you can look back and be like, oh, I should have refined a few things. But as a third party who's seen you, I've known you now for 7, 8 years. I look at you and I'm like, this person is doing everything under the sun, is like you said, putting your whole into it. And to me, that's inspirational because I've kind of been on this one track of, I do design, I do a few things here and there, like within that world.
Mhm.
But I don't have like a huge, I'm not like diverse in all of the
Yes.
things that I offer, the services, the things that I've been able to work on or lend my talents to, quote unquote. You're like across the board, and to me, that's something that I look at. I'm like, I should push myself more to do things outside of my comfort zone. So you can say, oh, like I should have, but I'm like, get it, girl, like.
Um, well, girl, let me tell you on the other side, it is exhausting. I mean, but it is a lot of fun.
Yes.
Ever since I was a kid, I had a bit of delusion, and I think that
You have to.
it takes delusion, especially as an entrepreneur and a freelancer. I didn't do great in school. I was the social kid in high school who, I was on the SRC every year, finding ways to go and plan pep rallies, like instead of going to class. But because I was a creative, I always knew that, I was always in the theater. I was always doing stuff that had me connecting with people and doing something great and entertaining and bringing people together. And like, even as like a homebody, like, I love to entertain, I love to cook, I love to do those things. It's just, there's something about, bringing people together.
Hmm.
And and I think what's been interesting is that, like, once I got into my lane that I finally have been in now, and kind of where I am now, it's interesting to look back and see how really all of the pieces of my life
Hmm.
have kind of got me here. And while it wasn't like necessarily the most conventional way, and through, certain trainings and doing ba 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 ba, you know, I'm really, being able to translate and transfer skill and, like, build this toolkit and actually then turn around and use it and go for it and use that delusion at the same time, has been able to, really kind of give me an opportunity to grow and shine. And so that's where I think that's I'm so grateful for, while looking back on these different chapters, have been, as like, sometimes it's like, "Oh, okay, I can't believe I even did that." But I am just so grateful that I did all of those things, every single one of them, from the mistakes to whatever, because, like, like, I'm so excited to be where I am in this lane right now.
So, on the topic of looking back, I do want to go back a little bit, and I would love for you to talk to me a little bit about the significance of drag in your life and like where
Oh
that
my
came
god.
from.
Oh my god. I mean, like, way going way back, like, Queer as Folk, obviously being
Iconic.
the little Greek boy with his finger on the button while his family was sleeping, waiting for them, like, in case they didn't come downstairs, all of that stuff.
Turn it off real quick. Yeah.
Turn it off real quick, change the channel, and hopefully it's not the good parts, or else you'll have to come back to the second viewing of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think after that, I think, I was working retail in high school. That was the first time I started meeting gay people in real life. And I met a great friend. Their name was Mitch, or Roxy, was their drag name.
Hmm.
And Roxy decided to help put me into drag so I could get into the bars underage,
Yes.
for my first time, because they would never ID the drag queens. I don't know if I should be saying this out loud if they're listening.
Statue of limitations.
Yeah, that's fair. We're gone, girl. I don't even think they own the bar anymore. But long story short, I was already a performer. I was already in drama class. I was already doing, I was Greek dancing. I was doing all those things,
Oh, I
and,
love
like,
it.
became this part of me that also helped kind of build this confidence and fuel this confidence in me. And so I did drag, I think, for over 10 years. I ended up, after I'd finished cancer, I remember I was performing. I even had the tube still in my chest for my IV, and then I, like, put it inside my really big
Nothing's
tits.
stopping you.
To, no, that was, well, no, we were raising money for charity. Like, when I was Empress, we raised over $30,000 for queer charities in Saskatchewan, and so, like, those are the necessary works anyway. But that's another thing. But drag has always been part of my life. I did that for 10 plus years. I was Empress at the age of 21, raising funds for the entire for Saskatchewan and kind of representing Saskatchewan. I traveled across, Canada and a little bit of the world. But I actually, when I moved to Toronto, it's funny enough, I actually brought everything with me. I didn't think I was going to do it anymore.
Hmm.
I kind of lost a relationship with drag, because I did, find that I couldn't do drag without doing drugs, and so it really had put me into this party scene that I really couldn't get out of without relying on one or the other.
Right.
And so I kind of had to put her away for a bit, but I did bring her to Toronto. I was like, what? She's going to go out, she's going to put her cha-cha heels on, and maybe we'll see if we figure it out. But when I moved to Toronto, one of my first apartments here accidentally attached my storage locker to another unit in the building, and then when somebody went to go move into that unit, they threw out everything that was in the storage locker. So mine and my
No.
roommate's stuff all got thrown into the garbage. So like all of my custom dresses, my wigs, my
Oh,
shoes, my boobs, my everything,
that's
like
so
everything was gone. Like every because I had a lot I had some personal designers at home that were also some of my best friends that had made me amazing things that I had for throughout the years, but it was all gone. And so and that was like that was a whole piece that I was like, well, I'm not gonna go and do this all over
yeah, like
again. Like
start from scratch.
I'm not. Just the idea of starting from scratch wasn't exciting. There was already, like in Toronto, drag queens are like Starbucks. You can throw throw
Yeah.
a nickel and you're gonna hit one. Like it's just like I'm not a young pup anymore. So for me, like I didn't know if I could really kind of make a go of doing it all over again. And so now it's just kind of this thing that I love so much still. And like I got a great set of boobs in the closet still. I got a couple wigs. I got a couple shoes. There are a couple still pieces. Like you can't, you can take Simone out of the park, but you can't take the park out of Simone, I guess. And now to get to work on Drag Race and like kind of have this full circle moment where it helps me also relate to my queens
Yes.
in my chair and know what those different moments are like from the awkward confrontations that you have with people at the bar or situations in public or even just the physicality of put your dick behind your back behind, like all of those things create a really great and hopefully a safe space for them to feel like it's okay to tell me anything.
Question, you keep saying she. Who is she? What's her name?
So she started out as Sourpuss. She was a shooter girl. She was vivacious. It's funny because red was her color because I found the main reason I really started drag was because my mom had a bunch of stuff in a garage and she'd asked me to go get everything ready for a garage sale. It's like sort through stuff. And so I'm like digging through the garage at my mom's house and there's a sealed up armoire that's just sealed up with duct tape. And I crack it open and it's just dresses, still with the tags on in like dry cleaner bags. And they're
Typical
like,
European mom. So many
right?
she's never worn.
She's never worn, right? And like, but these, and like you also know, typical, like these are like early 90s, late 80s
A
dresses. So
vibe.
they are sequined, they are beaded, they are fringed, they are gorgeous, right? And so I put the dress. I like there was one dress that was a red sequin beaded fringe dress, and I put it on. I was like, "Well, you can't tell me I'm not Tina
I'm
Turner."
stealing.
And that's it. And I went, and that was the first number I did was Tina Turner. It was so good. Proud Mary, always one of my favorites.
I love
Uh,
it.
but yeah, so it started out as Sour Puss, but then when she became a lady, and then went for Empress, I became Simone Duval.
Simone
And that was
Duval.
yes.
I
You
love
can
the
YouTube her. You can find her online. Yeah, there's
I
there's
will be looking
performances
that up.
online. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Even in the name though, see, going back to what you were talking about, wearing different hats, having different
Mhm.
identities, you went from Sourpuss to Lady Duval, or was it
Simone Duval. Yeah,
Simone
Simone Duval.
Duval?
Yeah.
So like those are opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So
Yeah.
we're seeing
She's
this
about growth. She's about growth.
this shift. And so you go from drag to Mr. Gay Canada, which is similar, where you go from drag in like this feminine form to, a male drag, let's
Hyper
say.
masculine drag. Yeah,
Exactly.
100%. My drag king look. Simon. We'll call him Simon. Yeah.
So when did that happen?
Um, so after I was Empress and I decided to kind of let go of because, I mean, as other drag queens will know, or anybody in kind of like a drag queen system, like the court system and things like that,
Mhm.
there are things. Sometimes they're not inviting spaces.
Yeah.
Sometimes us queers can be awfully mean to each other, and so I just decided to take some time for me, and that's when I really decided to focus on my health. I lost a bunch of weight and was working towards a goal and whatever, and but Mr. Gay Canada did that. I ran in a local competition in the local competition is kind of like a joke. I didn't think I was going to get far. I was like this little pudgy kid from Saskatoon, whatever. And then I won the local one. Then they sent me to nationals. I was like, okay. we'll go there. I was up against, like personal trainers and all of this shit. And I was like, okay, I don't know. And then I ended up winning nationals. They sent me to worlds, and there I was, kind of fighting. I was battling against Brazilian cage fighters, and like, 30.
That's
There was 30 some other guys.
crazy.
It was wild. We were shooting guns and going through police academy training and all of this different stuff. But the whole process of just kind of becoming Mr. Gay Canada actually was a really interesting experience, kind of finding myself again after drag, finding Danny again, finding that hyper masculine side of myself, of why I love being gay,
Yeah.
of why I love men, and all, finding those pieces of it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you, there is nothing better than traveling around the world wearing a sash that says "Mr. Gay Canada," because every homosexual that wants to know about it, and I love telling them. So, so I mean, that was like, for me, that was kind of, that was a really big turning point year. Was it really? I found a lot of myself. I started feeling like, for the first time since cancer, I started feeling like myself in my body again,
Mm.
like I was finally healing all of those things. That was a journey. It was a really cool opportunity to do. Mr. Gay Canada is an interest. It was more than a beauty pageant. I thought it wasn't, but it was really more than a beauty pageant. There's still people that I talk to that were in my year from around the world, and that we check in. It led me to things like getting to march in pride parades that had neo Nazis spitting on us, and in Prague, and all of those different things, where it really got me interested in global community, from an LGBTQI plus standpoint, into spirit standpoint, of like global activism, and how similar our stories are no matter where we are. And so that really kind of was starting the precipice of my activism journey. When I came back from Mr. Gay Canada, the entire Pride Board of Saskatoon decided that they were going to leave, and there was nobody else that wanted to take it over. And so, as I was wrapping up being Mr. Gay Canada, I got a call from Saskatoon Pride Festival saying, "You're the only person we think that can do this. Would you be interested in taking this on?" And so I made a couple calls to people I knew that were great at different roles. I knew somebody that was great at socials. I knew somebody that was great at events. I knew somebody that was great in finance. I knew somebody that would be great as a secretary, etc. So I just built this little army, and then we ended up taking Saskatoon Pride over as soon as I was done Mr. Gay Canada, and then I took that on for the Pride Festival there for about 4 years.
It's almost like you're going from drag into Mr. Gay Canada. You're like in the
Oh,
community, you're like living, breathing it. It's your reality. And then from that experience, you're taking that and now you're like, okay, now how do I take my experience through building community, because you're doing that, and then now flip it and give it back.
since community, I did find, gave me so much. My family and I have a very interesting relationship, and I would say not great. And so there was a lot of people in the community that became a second family for me, that became a safe space for me to to find myself and to be my authentic self and find the things I liked about myself. I think we all have a duty to kind of gay it forward wherever we can. And so that's really kind of been my motto, is how do I just make this world better for the next person, and or make this a little easier for the next person. I think too many times we get caught up in, well, I had to go through that, so why shouldn't you, right? Instead
A
of like,
100.
how do I, well, I went through that, so I really hope you don't have to. And I think we don't we've lost a lot of empathy along the way, and I think that there's so much good that can be done by us just choosing to make it easier for others, without it impacting you, without it being easier for you. That pain isn't going to go away for you, but in the release of making it better for somebody else, that's hopefully the release that you'll get, right? And so that's how I've tried to live my life, is in everything I do, find a way to kind of take it back and give it back, and or find a way to interconnect. And I think that's one of my greatest attributes, and maybe also one of my greatest weaknesses, is that sometimes it's that to a fault also.
But that's good. I like the way you worded that because I have heard both of those opinions or thoughts around from like people who've had more life experience than myself, who say like the younger generation like it's the first one is I love that you guys aren't having to go through a lot of the things that we did, but then also on the other side I've heard from a lot of people saying you guys don't even know, which we don't, like, let's be real, we have not experienced that growing up in the 90s and 2000s. Like, I'm not going through what someone in the 80s did or the 70s. I understand both sides. I get it, but I'm also like, it don't we want to progress? Like, we are progressing, is it not?
Right.
Like,
Well, but are we, right? And I
I
think
know.
that's the other question is like, no different than how anybody that's not a boomer, sits there and thinks, like why, like we're just kind of like, all right, boomer, okay, boomer, get out, right? Because what are the boomers saying? Oh, well, like you didn't get it, so you don't have it so bad. We had it so bad. So like, why do we not think that mentality? Why do we think that that mentality is okay when we're talking about things that actually cause pain and trauma and
Mhm.
separation and segregation? Like it's like this. We're afraid to acknowledge the things that we've been through because we don't want to take on what other people are going through. Then
Mhm.
just call it that, right? Like it's like we used to be global citizens. We used to really feel like that we could really look after one another, but it's just feeling more and more like lip service these days because to be fair and devil's advocate, people are too busy. People are too busy to take on more than what is in their immediate bubble or periphery because they are working so hard to live with everything that's happening. People are taking side hustles. They only have time for so many people in their life because there is only physical time that they can spread thin while also being able to take care of themselves.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean necessarily that your mentality has to be unapologetic or unempathetic
Yeah.
or lacking empathy. There has to be a balance of being able to say and find opportunities where you can to be an activist or to be an advocate. I'm not in pride movements anymore, but I know that I'm still in everywhere I can finding ways to be an activist, whether it's being when I'm doing casting for a show like Family Feud and putting on families. Like we had the first ever thruple in Canada that we searched for and things like that.
I love it.
Finding ways to tell our stories or to be visible and give us opportunity wherever I can. That's my goal, right? And so I don't have to be marching in the parade now to do that. I can now do it in my work and with what I do and with what I love. And so that's what I really challenge people to do, I guess, going forward is how do I take the thing that I already love to do, but find a way to layer in a form of advocacy or activism within my business stream, within my line, within my community, within my family and network that I can all easily just continue to put out there into the world.
I love it. You're spreading joy wherever you go and connection.
Ah,
Genuinely though, like honestly, when we first met, we met I think at the conference, at the
yeah.
summit, which we're
Mhm.
filming this in June, and they're doing another one next week, which I'll see you
I
there.
can't wait to see you next week.
I
Yes.
know. I don't. This will come out much later in the summer,
Yes.
but and I remember meeting you for the first time, and you just have this. And I'm not, I say this to every guest a lot of times. Like I'm not trying to blow smoke, but I'm gonna blow smoke for a minute. You have this like energy, like it's so you just. I don't even know how to describe it. You're just somebody that like people want to get to know. It doesn't surprise me that so many people are reaching out to you to work with you to be in connection with you. You moved to Toronto from the prairies. You're establishing yourself here. And how did you get involved with the CGLCC? Like, where did that come into the timeline?
CGLCC, it's funny when I was Mr. Gay Canada, because the CEO of CGLCC, Daryl Sherman, he used to run Travel Gay Canada, which was kind of a queer tourism agency. And while I was Mr. Gay Canada, I was sponsored by Tourism Saskatoon when I was Travel Gay Canada. Tourism Saskatoon was Mr. Gay Canada, and they got me an opportunity through Travel Gay Canada to be one of their keynote speakers at one of their conferences.
Hmm.
And so I actually came out to Niagara and I was a keynote speaker at the Travel Gay Canada conference. That's where I met Daryl. So the reason I moved to Toronto was Pride Toronto offered me a job. So I came out here to work with them in the year that Olivia Nuama took over in a community engagement role and kind of like support them in marketing communications and things like that, because I had so much experience in building Saskatoon. Because when I started Saskatoon Pride, we had about 300 people that would attend. And then by the time we finished, and there was like 4 events. And then by the time I finished in our last year, we had over 20,000 in attendance. We had multi-year
Wow.
partnerships. We had all of these things. And so they approached me to say, hey, listen, we know you're leaving Saskatoon Pride. We have an opportunity for you to come over here to Toronto. And I was also going through a divorce. So I was like, perfect, let me get out. So, well, this is the best time ever. I'm going to pack up my little dog and hit the road. I mean, it was really saved me actually, and so I kind of after I wrapped up Saskatchewan Pride, came over here to Toronto Pride, and through them my engagements with Toronto Pride, I ran into Daryl and things like that, and they wanted me to come over and work on their program, which is all about supplier diversity, which I'd never heard about. Like the one thing you'll know about me is I might not be trained in everything, but I do have a bit of a weird, like, beautiful mind, Rain Man memory, and
Mm.
and the way that I can see kind of the clock pieces always. And so that's just always how my brain has worked. Like I can look at the thing and see how, like, logistically it all kind of whatever. That's been kind of really my bread and butter of like how I've been able to pivot and be able to take on new challenges and do different careers is because you know, Daryl, pitched me this thing about, hey, come on, find queer businesses that are 51% owned, and this is what they do, and whatever. Teach people about capability statements and how to do all that stuff. I'd never done any of that before in my life, but I knew that I knew how to communicate with people. I knew that I could help. I could always find a way to find common ground with people. I understand business and business sales growth strategies, things like that, because I had a background, a little bit of banking in me as well. So that's how I kind of started with CGLCC was this idea of finding queer entrepreneurs. And I did that with them for a couple years. And I think we found a ton in my time there. I think we increased the membership there while I was there by about, I want to say like 150 to 200% in terms of certified suppliers that we found in
Amazing.
my time there. I was working for a nonprofit that supported small businesses, and then we hit a pandemic.
Hmm.
And so that was the time where there was no funding, there was no money coming in, there was no all of that stuff. So people have to go in those moments, and so I was one of the cutbacks during COVID. But that was actually kind of the moment that really changed my career. So yeah,
So would you say that's like a what the fuck moment in your career?
I mean, I've got a couple what the fuck moments in my career. I think that was kind of like a what the fuck do I do? I think
Yes.
because there were that was the biggest part for me was I was still new to the city. I felt like I didn't really feel like I had connection in the city enough to be able to just kind of go and find work. This is a city, being in Toronto is a city that is, there's a lot of people doing a lot of jobs, and even knowing kind of pathways into careers or to start, or like as somebody who's not really trained in things, who doesn't have, the thing on the resume that's got like the schooling or anything like that, and barely got their grade 12. I started to get a little nervous as to like what would
Yeah.
life in Toronto look like for me. Like I know what I'm capable of, but the amount of effort it takes to have people see it is exhausting, and
Yes.
you don't also know who's looking and when they're looking. And so there was a little bit of like a hiatus time where I went back to serving a bit, and I was like, oh, we're great, a 30-something-year-old running around concrete floors. That doesn't last long. Um, but there was, that weird transition part of what do I do? And I think that's where it all hit me, because it was also the world was like falling apart, right? Like everyone
100.
was like we were in dystopia Toronto, like a paper bag in the wind was probably the most action you saw on the streets, and here I am trying to also figure out where I go as a business or as a person. And so that was really the precipice of what started In Her Shoes, was this coming from a chamber where I had heard such impactful stories from queer businesses, not only about things that were happening to them, but how they started. And I remember there was one business in particular that really made my brain turn as a storyteller, that I could actually see their business plan, but actually as a movie. There was a business out of Quebec, Christine Lorraine, and she made adaptable clothing for folks that couldn't necessarily, wash themselves or go to the
Mm.
washroom. And I remember her telling me the story of when she was going through the AIDS epidemic because she used to help bathe, give men, soap baths that were dying of AIDS.
Mm.
And she would tell me the stories of these men and how it would happen. And to me, it's like that's so far removed from, a business, a
Yeah.
business innovation idea that I was like, that story, those types of stories need to be told. And so, with no options other than to sit with myself and to do some writing and to, with the world not closing down, I also saw an opportunity because TV and film was considered essential work at that time. And
Yes.
there was no there, and that was the only people that could like. And I was like, I'm not going to work in a grocery store. That's not where I can do it. This is happening. I've got all these ideas. So I sat down and I wrote a bunch of concepts. I wrote a bunch of different concepts that I had in my brain of different shows. And a couple of them actually got signed on by production company. I just started, and then I started sending them out. I started looking at production companies and being like, who's in Toronto? Who would maybe want to see this idea? And who's got talking to friends, who's got connections. And then I ended up getting a couple of them picked up for potential development. And so that was really what then told me, I was like, okay, but like if I sell this, if this something does happen, what am I going to do on that set? Because
Hmm.
like they can just buy this idea and then say bye to me, and then I never get to see that idea to the end. So if I actually want to see the idea, and if I want to be present in the room, I'm going to need the skills for them to justify hiring me to be on
Yeah.
that set, right? And so that's what started this, what I call my paid internship in television, which was, I started as an LPA, moving tents in the rain, overnight sets, getting to set at midnight, leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning, doing fire watches. I did all of those things. My car getting stuck in the middle of nowhere, coyotes howling around me. I did all of that. It was wild.
I
But
just
like,
I'm gonna jump in for a sec.
yeah.
I literally, you saying coyotes makes me know you're from the prairies.
Ah!
Having lived in Edmonton for a year, I'm like, oh, that's
Oh,
there it is. There it is.
you got it, you got it. But yeah, we were, yeah. So like, I figured that was kind of the way for me to at least get work, get money coming in, and for me to start seeing the thing.
Yeah.
But you obviously know me. I'm an overachiever, and for me, I can't sit still, and especially when I'm like, okay, like I can't. I used to run festivals. I understand logistics. I understand how things all have to kind of come together to happen. How do I take that transferable skill into TV and film to be like, okay, well, like I can organize, I can obviously organize your lunches, I can get your paperwork done. It's no different, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the same skill, just in it, just doing a different thing, and everything is online. So why can't, I can teach myself what I don't know. And so in every job I started to take, I just started to show, I'll be like, oh yeah, like I'm happy to take on lunch orders today if you want. I'm happy to do, I ended up being a COVID officer for a while, right? That means I meet everybody. I get to interact with every single person on crew because they need to get their temperature checked. And
Hmm.
so that means that puts me in front of directors, that puts me in front of executive producers. And oh, don't mind me. Oh, I got that favorite thing that you liked. Oh, don't worry, And so bringing my easygoing, no, not easygoing, my over attentive personality in those instances became appreciated, and I was able to slowly start showing people that I had these other layers to my skill set, because I think that's probably the biggest what the moment is. People have this blockage of seeing you anything other than what is in front of them
A
or what is on
100%.
paper. And that to me is like the wildest part of it all, like because it comes out in so many different ways, whether it's like, people treating you one way because they think you're a certain job role, and they don't necessarily like what, outside of that really give a shit about anything else. And so you're only getting treated, it's like, oh well, you're a PA. It's like, oh, I'm actually like a 35-year-old man that's got like run businesses and said this. It's like, but like you don't care, right? But like that's cool, but there is just this general of like, the amount of times I either work on a set and they kind of keep you in one lane and they don't think about you for other things. And it's like, no, I can do all those things. Plus, I already know the thing you're working on. So, like, you're going to save time and money onboarding somebody and teaching somebody everything from the ground up. So, why are you not just kind of investing in the people that you're already bringing into the team? And so, there's been a couple of those moments where I'm just like, I wish we would also take time to actually get to know us, get to know the
Yeah.
people we're working with a little bit more, because I think we'll all save a little bit of time and stress in the process and how we can actually work to utilize skill sets and things like that. The amount of overqualified people that I've met in lower roles in a lot of sets on a lot of productions. And for the most part, it's just because a lot of people never ask the question of what else they were able to do or what they're capable of doing, what they have training in, and they're just hired for the one thing that they need.
No, I agree with you. And I think we live in a world where people are so tunnel vision that
Hmm.
as, entrepreneurs, as people who are freelancing, we have to, when you're saying this, is you have to take a step to go out of your way to show people, no, I'm more than this. I'm more
Hmm.
than this thing, because people are just going to skip over it. Like, like you said before, people are so busy and
Hmm.
our minds are so filled with productivity. We have to work, we have to complete, blah, 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 move forward. And so people don't even take the minute to actually like connect and say like, oh, hey, like I remember I worked as a bartender for a few years because like early stages of geographic, I was not making any money. So I'm like,
Hmm.
I need to supplement. So I was bartending on the side, and people just, a people, and this is like, I'm not trying to sound any type of way, but people being like, oh, like, so what are you studying in school? And I'm like, I'm 30. Like, I'm not in
Hmm.
school. I actually have
Yeah.
like my business, but this is like a side job. And people would instantly look at me differently. Oh, you have a
Hmm.
business. Oh, you're a designer. Oh, you have these other things that you do outside of. I'm like, yeah, I don't live at the bar. Like, you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
don't. And so
Hmm.
it's just so interesting to see the shift in people's eyes and how they would perceive me. And, it's wild.
100%. It's like that to me, maybe that's the wide-eyed, prairie boy in me of like genuinely arriving at a conversation, authentically wanting to connect and find out about you,
100.
and building my perception of you based on that. I don't know if yeah, like I don't know if that's like prairie optimism, but like to me, that's how you form connection, right? That's how you form
100.
authentic connection with people is genuinely letting people arrive as a blank slate,
Mhm.
and they can build themselves up or tear themselves down. But like for me to put a picture of what I think you are, that's only going to block me, right? But I like again, like you said, people are so busy, and I know that in certain instances, employers are also so busy that they've got a lot on their plate. But I think it
100%.
is really important that people take either time to like even in your planning stages, I think that's also going to save you money. It's going to save you effort if you look at your house before you start building it and saying, is there a way that we can, like, if everyone just took a breath and did that work first, I think is also, anyway.
I wanna talk a little bit about the Freelancers Professional Network. Now we had talked about this
Yeah.
offline, but I wanna
Yeah.
just tell me a little bit about that venture with them.
What's going on? Yeah, so it's funny. Now again, like any other time, I wanted to use CGLCC's activism and advocacy to actually support a different type of entrepreneur. So the idea essentially was, knowing the systems that CGLCC has and my experience with them, it kind of also, it was something I brought up before I left, but now more than ever is kind of a little bit more predominant. So it's this network we're trying to build essentially is it's a new membership level for CGLCC. We are looking at how do we support all entrepreneurs? How do we really open the door? The current programs that CGLCC offers is a main catering focused on a certain type of entrepreneur, an entrepreneur that can only really connect with and sell with global corporate business, which while it's a fantastic program and it's done a lot of great things for a lot of entrepreneurs, there is a entrepreneur that we're missing, which is the freelancer and entrepreneur, the gig economy worker that is now more predominant in our economy than ever. Um, and so I had this idea of essentially just creating a new group for them that could provide access to resources, like, everything from how to set up your business properly, how to when should you incorporate, what kind of taxes things you should be looking at, how to get yourself ready for, co-production or co-development, all of these different types of business resources, as well as access to our professional network of corporates and new corporate partners and government agencies that we can then use to advocate for industry. And so we've called it the CQCC FAM. It's part of the CQCC FAM. It's the Freelance Entrepreneur Associate Membership. It'll be launching in the fall of 2025. We will be working with different partners. Right now, we're in talks with groups like the Canadian Media Producers Association, CBC, all the big folks to try and create a professionals network. The first one will be creative arts, entertainment, and media. So, really kind of going through different sectors of that and figuring out what we can do to support freelancers in this space. And the real precipice came from with this world of, tariffs and,
Yes.
everything happening in the US, and the amount of American content that we're getting, the fact that Canadian system is so small, and we're now losing American opportunities that are now staying in the US.
Hmm.
How do we support entrepreneurs in this process? The TV industry is predominantly all freelancers.
Yeah.
It's set up like a lemonade stand, right? Like we are all just freelance gigs that are brought in, to kind of work on our own. Whether you're a production coordinator, whether you are a PA, whether you are a story producer, all of us are independent businesses. And so what happens when all of those folks that are out of work consistently, because right now it's coming in waves, so we get gigs, and then everybody goes for those same gigs, and then there's still people that don't get the gig, and then the gigs are gone, and now there's the pool is bigger again of unemployed peoples. So
Hmm.
what happens when all of those people that build the things, whether it's like a photo shoot or whatever it is, what happens with all those people that are their own businesses and build those things, happen to get into the same room? What happens when they get in the same room and they can start to knowledge share? They can start to get access to resources, set their companies up properly, start collaborating on ideas, start spitballing things, and pull together shoots and whatever. They can go after and start seeing themselves really as businesses. And so that's really the precipice: is how do we get all of these freelancers now to start recognizing themselves as a business? And how do we give them the tools in that to succeed, grow, and thrive?
Everything that you said about, like all these, I wish I would have honed in. It literally has brought you to this moment because you're like the 360 experience of all the disparate elements of what it means to work for yourself, to work at the bottom, work at the top, etc. And now you're able to funnel that experience through this network that you're creating. It was all part of the plan because now you're like, okay, how do I help others based on my experiences to get in a room together and to connect and to create? And that at the end of the day is like something very beautiful because I'm not trying to, once again, not trying to blow smoke, but as somebody who's a freelancer who, I know I have to put myself out there to meet people. I can't just sit around waiting because I don't wake up to a paycheck.
Mhm.
Your legacy is being brought forward. As cheesy as that sounds, it's true.
I mean, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. I mean, at the same time, it's again just, yeah, leaving it better for folks, right? Like
Yeah.
the one thing is, no different than anybody else. We're all so busy, and as freelancers, I can't tell you that I know a ton. I know a couple queer people in my lane, and I know a couple queer people in my industry, but I'm sure there's tons more that we're
Tons.
all just so busy that we haven't had a chance to meet. So it's like this idea of how do we support each other, how do we get people, how do we get things that are going to help you, how do we help your business thrive at this time? What if all of these freelancers could create co-production companies to make their ideas happen instead of waiting in a queue where these straight gatekeepers or at these other production companies that are getting all the money, that are getting things funded? what happens when we could take the power out of their hands and start to tell our own stories
Yeah.
and start to empower ourselves in the way to tell our own stories, or get access to groups like CMPA who can help us get our pitches ready and things like that. And so that is really the goal for this network. Is we're going to do this industry by industry. We're starting with the creative arts, entertainment, and media. Then we're looking at events, tourism, and hospitality, and really looking at how do we bolster queer business by bolstering industries. Using our sponsors and new partnerships that we bring in. How do we use them to cater and hone programming, content, and supports for their industries, so that everything just feels a little bit more intentional. The way I kind of did this is no different than when I served for years, right? But when I was 19 or 19 years old, I was a district training manager for Boston Pizza International, and I built my own.
Love it.
I built my own service training program, that had. I mean, yeah, it was the 19. Yeah. I built like a server's manual from like host, all different departments in the restaurant. I built a training manual. Then it was purchased by Boston Pizza, and I became their trainer. And then I would create their
I love
training program.
that.
So it's like the whole this. So like the whole way I've been kind of doing this is kind of it feels like it's now replicating. Now that you say it out loud, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well I've done that before. Yeah. So it. I mean, why not, right? Like, it's what better way to distill your own information and to make things better for others, while also making things better for me, right? Like, I didn't make that manual because I wanted to impart knowledge. I made that manual because I was sick and tired of working with other servers or hostesses
Yeah.
that couldn't figure out how to take an order, how to do these things, right? And so it's like everything is like, while it seems good intentioned, when I put why I'm creating this whole thing is because finding queer people on set sometimes be difficult. Having an EP sometimes understand why it's important to have queer representation, or why maybe those people should not be cis and white, or why, all of those different things. I'm hoping to create a system where we can find spaces where we don't have to do that for each other, where we can find more people that are aligned, with our mission, visions, values of who we are as people and who we are as businesses, just as the chamber did for, supplier diversity. How do we do that for entrepreneurs? How do we that are in the trenches every day? And we want to open our doors, be your work fam, for freelancers, create that space, provide access to webinars, programming, events. We plan to do things like a freelancers forum is something that we're working on as well. Instead of doing a full conference, doing a forum. We'll be working with you, obviously, Gio. Though I don't know if this is something we can be excitedly talking about right now, but Gio, using your podcast as a way to talk to people about their career pathways. I
Yeah.
think that's really why I wanted to talk to you and do this with you today, is because I think sometimes we lose sight, or can't recognize flags or moments in our lives that we can really hone and harness the things that we love into doing good, while also doing what we love. And I think that if there's an opportunity for anybody now more than ever with what's happening in the world, this is a chance to come together, to find community, to build community, to support community. And I think that's really why I wanted to really do this now, is how do we protect us before the wave gets too big?
Yeah.
Before it's too late, and we're not doing the things now to give these people these tools. If the economy is only going to get worse, these businesses are only going to struggle more, right? And so let's find a way to kind of protect ourselves now and connect ourselves now, so that reaching out for work is not a harder thing. We found a queer-owned business out of Saskatchewan who offers health, dental, and vision benefits for freelancers specifically, that you can drop
I
off if
need
you
them.
need.
I need them.
Right. And so there's going to be a directory that'll be almost like LinkedIn. You can post if you've got reels as a creative, if you've got artwork, you could put your resume. You can really dive into your specialties as widgets, so that people can easily find and search what you do, and put it out to the public, so that we can support all business owners in getting things booked and blessed. who owns creative arts and entertainment more than the queers? Like, who owns event?
Nobody.
Right, nobody. But then also, like, who owns tourism, hospitality, and events like the queers? So it's like, when you look at it from a business standpoint in terms of how we can build this, there's a really exciting path forward here where people from niche jobs and careers will find their space a little bit more here, because I think there's going to be a little bit more camaraderie and a little bit more openness as to how we can get people in the room.
I love it. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there for specifically on the term of like pathways, where especially I think back to when I started the company 8 years ago, I had no idea what the path was. I had this like vision in my mind of like what I wanted to achieve. It was blurry. I'll be honest.
Always.
And now, in retrospect, I can look back at the last almost decade and say, okay, I know, point A to point B. Maybe it was like back to A again, forward to D, whatever. But there wasn't necessarily a carved out path for me. The way you're describing this I think that this network would potentially help a lot of, especially new entrepreneurs, see a clearer trajectory for themselves and say, okay, I know that I don't know how it's going to look, but I know exactly what is going to get me there. And that is through the connections that I'm making.
I would never have known about, how to get into story producing had I not, like, been asking, like, getting in the room and just meeting those people, right? Sitting at a table at the lunch table, talking to a story producer about why they do what they do, why they love what they do. And so I think that's also what I really hope comes from the pathways, is that, you know, you might be in something now, and like you could, but you're that curiosity that you have, or that thing. I remember when it was COVID and I was listening. I really got. I went into master class heavy. I was like, I am in school. Like,
I
I
love
wrote all my
it.
notes, and like, there was a couple that I listened to. Two that really spoke to me. One was Judd Apatow when we were going through comedy, but then the other was Shonda Rhimes, and she really kind of broke things down. And she said, like, I didn't know I was in my lane. I always thought I was crazy until I was finally in it and around my people. And I think that's what's interesting about exploring pathways, is that you can find those things that you recognize in yourself that you're not maybe getting in the thing that you're doing, that you keep either recognizing that it's being silenced or that you're constantly muscling to get what you want out of life. And so I think that, I mean, maybe because I've lived a million lives, I truly see the value in taking opportunity to try different things, but bringing your experience into everything you do and just putting your into it and seeing if it works. And the good thing about chapters is that chapters can end, and you don't have to feel bad about it, right? A good book isn't just one long
It's still
chapter.
part of the book.
It's still part of the book, and in the book, you write the book. I was reading The Ethical Slut, and um, the one of the things I love about The Ethical Slut is that, like, whether it's it talks about it in a polyamory sense,
Mhm.
but it really stuck with me, is like your ability to rewrite, and write the page is yours at any point in time. And I think one of my next what the fucks would be benchmarks. What are the benchmarks that we put on ourselves, on our relationships, on what success looks like? Like,
Girl.
what the right?
Yeah.
Like, that to me is one of the biggest things that holds me back in terms of, like, I suffer a lot of imposter syndrome, especially as somebody that doesn't have a lot of technical training in a lot of ways. I think that it causes a lot of anxiety that plays out in me in certain ways that I'm still managing and trying to figure out. But it does, because you're always worried, right? Like, what if they see through the cracks? What if they
Yeah.
see, what if like the great things that I'm doing are now outshone by this thing that I don't know how to do? And so, like, that anxiety then outweighs also these kind of things where you have to also then recognize the great things you're doing,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes it's really hard to see that when you're spinning at things in that way. But I think that there's so many times that we've put in so many benchmarks in our lives, and they're so damaging to us as people, as entrepreneurs. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm kind of going through that myself this past year where You know, in my mind, I went to school. I went to OCAD. I went to design school. I graphic design. You know, this has been my life's work so far. So this has been the identity that I have solidified or like around me, and that this is what I do. This is who I am. It can't be everything for me. I'm realizing that I need to diversify. I need to, because I get bored. I need even this venture. Like, I'm realizing this is something that your essence, your energy, whatever, it lends itself so well to. You can do it.
Just
Like,
do it.
why are we staying in this one lane when it's like the ethical slut, where you're like, life is a fucking buffet. Like, what are we doing
Hmm.
here? Why are we
Hmm.
limiting ourselves to one thing when there's so much out there to experience? And so, I don't know, like, that has been something where I'm trying to break free of this limiting belief of, oh, I'm a designer, period.
Hmm.
Right?
But not even just that. It's also this idea of like being proud of accomplishment. Like we're no longer able to also see, like, look at the things that we've done to get like and being, for instance, right now I'm not working on a show. I'm in between shows. I'm not working at all actually. Other than working for myself, I'm
Mhm.
currently developing.
But you're
A,
working though.
I'm working. Yeah, but like technically working, but I'm not on paper. Like technically to the world, I'm technically not working, and but I always working. I'm
Yeah.
never not working. But so that's one thing is like I am my success is reliant on me continuously doing it, whether I'm getting a paycheck or not, right?
Yes.
And so the other part of it is, but then I look at what I'm doing, and even though it's not getting paid, it's successful because I'm pulling together a TV show shoot with no resources, with nothing but goodwill, a cute smile, and
And
some blinking
tenacity.
eyelashes. And and that to me is more successful than sitting at a desk sometimes and just looking through casting videos. So it's like, what is this measure of success, and why does the fact that I'm not getting a paycheck from somebody to validate the fact that I've got talent enough for me to keep me okay?
But that's the life we have chosen, right? Like,
That's
in
the
so
life we've
many ways,
chosen.
we've chosen it. And so we don't wake up to a paycheck. But the thing that is pulling us forward, that driving force, is that need to create, is that need to connect, is that need to keep going. Because to me, when I slow down and I start to, that's when I'm not in the best of spaces. And
Mm-hmm.
we are our own worst critics when it comes to the level, let's say, productivity and money, right? If we're not making
Mm-hmm.
money, I'm not valid. I'm not, and that's my shit. Like, we're in the same boat. I'm like, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
making money, I'm useless or worthless or whatever, which is
Mm-hmm.
not true.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, this, and I don't have to tell you this, but you are building. You are building foundations for the next chapter, for the next part of the book, right? And so that's where you're doing. But you also can't negate all of the things that you've accomplished up until this point, which is, because we can be so like, what's next, what's next, what's next. And I talk to this almost every episode with everyone that I talk to. It's like, we're constantly like, go, go, go. But it's like, when do we actually take a minute to say, yeah, I've done that, and I
Mm-hmm.
can feel good about this stack of
Mm-hmm.
experiences that I've accumulated that
Mm.
is going to propel me into the next thing. But it's just that question mark of, what is that, right? When we're in that in between phase.
As especially as freelancers and entrepreneurs, like we're working from our homes. My work my work literally follows me to bed.
Hmm.
It's the first thing I think about when I get up in the morning. It's what I think about when I go to bed. It's in my house all the time. It is so intrinsically intertwined to who we are that it's hard for us not to take things personal. It's
Yeah.
hard for us to not, and now in a world that communication is being dropped by folks, like we're I don't know if people are just too busy or what it is, but people just stop responding to emails, proposals, whatever it is. They just don't even respond anymore. They're like, oh, you know what, I just don't have time, so I'm never going to get back to you.
100%.
And so as freelancers who sit there and take things, and like are chasing at things and are taking their time that's not paid to build things and things like that, and submit and whatever, people don't realize what that takes, and how much those knocks hurt every single time. But
Hmm.
we do it every day, day in day out, because we know that we have to eat. And so it's been a really interesting journey. I think right now more than ever. And I think that's actually why I really wanted this fan program to launch, was because, like you said, it's not we're not great when we are alone and not working and not motivated. And so what happens hopefully is that you'll now have access to, a directory of people that you could reach out to, have a virtual coffee with, talk about their experience if you can, come to an event or whatever it may be, or visit a webinar or whatever it is that of other folks that are like-minded, that are in a very similar industry, that you can shoot the shit with. Maybe make a new friend, maybe make a new business partner, go after a project together. With your experience alone, Gio, I think, like, you know, why get into designing pitch decks, get into, there's so many different
Bro.
things you can do with your skills, that, like, again, it's about just taking your skill and transferring it to different networks and just pitching it that way and packaging it that way.
Mhm.
But that's time. That's just, you have to have that time. You have to get that breathing room. You have to whatever. And it's one more thing on an entrepreneur's plate to be like, I already am packaging all of these other things. So
I will always say yes to things because I want to do everything. I want, like, you talk about pitch decks. You know how many pitch decks I've designed in my life? It's to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore.
see, that's it exactly, right? It's like, what are the things you love to do? And I think that's why I went this way. It was like, what do I love to do? I love to connect with people, and I want to help people connect their story and chase their dream. With whatever I've done in my life, whether it's a business or CGLCC, whether it's a drag queen on Drag Race, whether it's a contestant on Got Talent, whether it's a 16-year-old attending a Pride festival for their first time. My modus operandi and my mythos has always been about help people achieve the thing that they've always wanted for themselves. I love TV so much because while there are, painful moments that happen, there's so much joy, and there's so much passion in people, and there's so much awesomeness to celebrate, and to the opportunity to the privilege that I have of getting to sit in a chair and have them tell me their story in a way, and or work with them to kind of punch it up and have fun with it and really go for it, and so that they can shine in the moment that they are going for their dream. It's like, to think, as a little gay boy from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, who, like, started his family restaurant and, like, took all of these jobs, was the sandwich artiste, and literally did, like, every freaking job under the sun, to be here now. And, like, would I have ever thought that that was ever possible? No. And I think that's also why I scream from the rooftops that I'm from Saskatoon, and I proudly
Yes.
wear it as my badge of honor. And I even when I'm in rooms and, like, oh, we really don't cast out that way, I'm like, no, no, I'll be sending memos out that way. It's because, like, I want other kids from those hometowns to see that these opportunities are available, that just because you live in Saskatchewan, opportunity isn't borderized. We are a global community, we're a national community, and you can chase the opportunities you want. You can be the person you want, and you don't have to live by these rules or things that people think are confining you.
I love it. I have to say, like, just talking to you, it's very inspiring. You are motivating me to do more in my own life. Like, and I, once again, not
Great.
trying to blow smoke. I just really love it. It's the connection piece. But you touched on TV, and I did want to ask you this. I love reality TV, and I watch a lot of it. My mom even made a comment. She's like, you don't really watch a ton of TV, but when you talk about the shows you watch, it's all reality. I'm like, I love reality TV. Like, it's just something that
Love it.
I love it.
Love
And
it.
so you have worked on so many shows. Like, just list off some of the shows you've worked on because I think it's very
Oh
impressive.
gosh. I mean, I started out doing, like, some, like, smutty, like, made for movie of the weeks, and, like, there was one called A Family Seduction that had, like, a killer guy that was in love with the daughter and the mother and all of this. Like, I did both those kinds of projects.
Hmm.
I got to do Apple, the remount of Ghostwriter for Apple. I worked on that one. I was the Canadian casting producer for MILF Manor season 2. I've done Family Feud Canada a couple seasons. I've done
MILF Manor.
MILF Manor season
I
two.
love that show. Oh my god.
What else? Beast Games is probably one of my biggest ones. I was a field producer in that. I got to run through the jungle and all that fun stuff. I think, Canada's Drag Races, but that's my crowning jewel. I got to do season 5 and season 6.
Hmm.
That's coming out here soon as a story producer. Yeah, Canada's Got Talent. I was there for 3 seasons. I started out working in brand integrations as their brand integrations producer because of my background with sponsorships from Pride. That's what got me the opportunity to go into brand integrations producing. And then from there, that's where I started getting my story chops to kind of move into different parts. And because of Canada's Got Talent, I was able, because I got to do the interviews and talk to folks about painful moments and things like that. That was really kind of what helped set me up to be able to be in a room to talk to the queens about some of the things that have happened in their lives. And so Gotta Get Out, I did that show too. I don't know if that, like, that you're a fan, because you're a reality fan, but that's like where all the celebrities are trapped in a
Yep,
house.
I've heard of
Yeah,
it.
that was wild. Yeah.
It's so interesting. I want to talk about story producing because if
Mm,
you're talking to contestants on the shows and you're trying to pull these stories out of them in order to connect with the audience, what is
mm,
that experience like? Like how can you talk to me a little bit about that whole world? Because I've watched shows where I see people on TV and I immediately latch on to a certain contestant. I'm like, oh, this person for whatever reason I vibe with. Even you talking to me pre this interview about my interview and interviewing you, right? And talking about that whole the questions and the flow that has given me so much perspective. Even in that 10-minute call that we had, I was like, oh shit, you're making me rethink some things, which is amazing. So now I want to put it on you because I
yeah.
think it's just such a I'm in this world now a little bit, so I want to,
Yeah.
like, tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reason I was able to get into story was about just being curious. And and you obviously, like, there's processes along the way for story producers to get notes. Obviously, there's casting notes, you're going to have materials, so it's doing your research, really kind of
Mhm.
finding those moments. I'll go and look for things that aren't in those documents. I'll go look at their social media, I'll go look at things like that, so that I can find, oh, I see a picture here of them wearing this. I'm going to ask, does that have a significance? Does that tie me to a different story? And so what I would do is then, like, well, I'll then just create my master list of questions and keep it, try to get myself and chunk them into sections or chronologically, so that I know that I can either get folks into a moment or get folks into a time in their life and kind of keep it all kind of flowing that way. I think I obviously, you set up your pre-calls, you gauge energies, all that kind of stuff. I find ways to connect with my different people in whatever way I can. Sometimes, like luxury, on drag race, we have a luxury, right? We are given a cast; they stay with you all the way till the end, or until they go, and so you can flesh things out a little bit further. Whereas on a show like Canada's Got Talent, it is a lot of burn and turn, right? Like, it's like people are cut right there and then in one episode, or it's all of the. It really depends on the formula and the format of what type of show you're working on, all that kind of stuff. Are they just like Mr. Beast? Because it was a YouTube formula, everything was bites. It was all sound bites. It's not like you don't have a lot of time to get into an in-depth story with somebody unless we have time to care about them. And so it's finding that balance of, how do I, knowing that time is finite in broadcast TV, how do I get your bites out, knowing that I need to be able to get the rest of the episode done, right? And coaching you to tell me that story now in a succinct way, and asking you in that story that's still going to prompt a response in a way that is still going to give it to me succinctly, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's like social math.
There is a science to it. Like, a lot of times, specifically, we're talking about like Drag Race. A lot of these
Mhm.
queens, will be like, "Oh, like the edit, right?" And I always say, and we talked about this. You said what you said.
You said what you said. Like,
You
here,
said
like,
what you
there
said.
is no AI. There is, like, we do not tell you, like. So what I will say sometimes is, like, because we never interfere. This is all about authenticity. There's no
Yeah.
way that, especially in a world like this, they will, like, we'll get read for filth as soon as it's not genuine, right? And so, I mean, I will tell you, there are times that I'll hear something from one of my contestants, and I'll say, like, what do you think about saying it this way? Just to help them kind of either punch it up, maybe give them a brandable moment, something that, but like, that can get shared out in memes. Like, you know, because
Yes.
again, this is all about brand building, right? The thing about reality TV is there are numerous ways to win the game in reality TV. And I
Hmm.
say this as part of my like pre-contestant conversation, which is you can win the physical game and do the end, or you can win the game. You can also win the game in the chair. You know, the amount of times that I will say more quotes on shows like about from shows like Drag Race
Yeah.
from the interview room as opposed to talking about who the winner was is like the balance is imbalance. Like you're always sharing quotes, you're always saying quotes, you're not always just sitting there talking about the winner's career. So if you really want to spend time in a game, be fun in the chair, you know, really be go for it. And that's why it's so personality driven and
Hmm.
in reality TV is because that's what people tune in for. They want hot takes, they want big quirky fun personalities that are going to keep them enticed. And so that I think that's what we're going to see now in this new next wave of what content looks like, which is because you know the whole funding stream and everything about Canadian television is changing. And so everything is going in back to or going to this content creator created content first model that get your eyes, build your audience, and then we'll talk about giving you a deal. And so I think it's going to be really interesting going forward what that looks like.
I'm gonna pick your brain at some point. I want to hire you out to help me suss this out because I feel like you'll help me to refine what it is that I'm putting out into the world because I'm like doing this all on my own and just hearing you speak, I'm like, I really got to rejig some things.
If you aren't doing a like a system update, you know, every year or every 2 years, no different than you would on your computer,
Hmm.
to your business and your business model and what you're offering is, especially nowadays with the advancements that are coming out and things are changing so rapidly. If you aren't doing that system update for your business, that's where I think you're making the biggest mistake, or at least you're setting yourself up for blockades or for potential unemployment. Is that because you have to be ready to adapt and you have to be aware of what's happening currently and you have to be able to figure out how you know am is what I intend to be communicated what's actually being heard or landing,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's like no different when I send if I've got a pitch deck, I send a pitch deck for one of my shows out. I've got a producer circle of folks that I will send everything to and wait to hear back from every single one of them before I make an edit, right? Because I need to make sure that how I'm seeing the game or how I'm seeing the thing is landing to somebody that's completely not from this world, right? And so you should always be doing that with your business offering. You know, like, hey, when you go to my website, can you tell that this is what I do? Hey, when you go book an appointment with me, is this really easy or user friendly? You know, using our friends and our networks and things and clients that we already have in our system to be kind of also helping us scale in this time is also important, right? Like that's how you're going to learn and you're not going to know it's a kink and sometimes your friends don't unless you tell them that they want to hear from you. Sometimes they won't tell you because they feel bad pointing out a flaw in your system that you've built
Hmm.
and that they know that you've put all your time into. So you as an entrepreneur have to open that door to be constructive, be get feedback, you know. A lot of people think because we're passionate as entrepreneurs, I get this all the time. People think I'm precious. People think that I'm like
Yes.
because I'm so passionate about everything that I must be take things a certain way, or that if I come to you with feedback that I'll be so whatever. And it's like no, I have ADHD. It's how it's just for me. I have to. It's all about systems, checks, and balances. So when you tell me there's an issue with something, I just need to know we've thought about all of the different ways that it could be because I've overthought all of those ways already. And so it's like I'm not being precious. I just would need to know so I know how to move, steer my ship. And a lot of people think that in that giving you feedback to your business, even as a friend, that they're hurting your feelings or no, if they don't want to hire you for a gig. Oh, there's Steve. If they don't want to hire you for a gig, even if it's relevant, like that's okay. I can take if you're gonna hire somebody else. Like I'm a big boy.
Yeah.
I'm all right if you don't want to give me the gig. I would love to know why, and it's not a closure piece. It's just so I know how I can better improve and move myself forward, or know how to engage with you next time. but like I don't need the gig. I'm happy somebody's getting a gig, and I will
Mhm.
find my own gig.
Mhm.
But a lot of people treat that like the most difficult conversation. It's like, no, girl, it's just the way the world works. There's only so many gigs. There's only so many people. It is the way it is. Like I don't think that I deserve anything over anybody else. We need to move forward and make sure that you're always doing those kind of those checkpoints for yourself to ensure that your business is in the best position to be seen, found, and grow.
If it's coming from a place that is, hey, maybe like a little to the left, a little to the right, where it's not this a criticism, it's helpful. Like, so on the topic, when you're like, hey, I sent you questions for the episode, and that's something that I've actually realized because I got some feedback from people just over the last few weeks of recording saying like, oh, like, normally I get questions beforehand, and I was approaching it from this, like, oh, I want it to be free flowing conversation, and then I'm realizing like, okay, maybe I need to structure it a little bit more. So sending them out to you, and you're like, I have some feedback on that, and so I've been asking everybody at the end of every episode the same recurring question, which is, what's the most on brand thing you've ever done? And you had notes to me about, maybe you can like reword it in a way that'll get more juice for the squeeze, if in so many ways. If this is almost like a live moment where
A live test.
a live test where you had said to me like, maybe if you word it in a way where it's like, how do you define your personal brand, or when did that definition of your brand for yourself click for you? And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna make some notes and rethink this because I want this to be like change. So like, I'm gonna ask you to give me feedback live. Like, so for
Mhm.
you, like, what would be something that you think would be more impactful? Because I am always looking to learn and grow and evolve. And so, any comments on that?
I think you have. I mean, there's a reason we're going forward with pathways. Is I think that you have all of those elements. I think you are engaging. I think you're naturally curious. You have all of those wonderful attributes that make it warm and easy to connect with. I don't really have feedback for you, Gio. I think that like your curiosity and your willingness to explore, I think that's going to be your biggest selling feature forward. Is that like, as somebody that's also trying to find your own footwork and finding a new piece, that is the fun of it.
Mhm.
You've kept it really conversational. I felt at ease this whole time.
Not on me, actually.
Oh, I thought that's I was like, I don't have feedback for you.
I'll take
Like
it.
I'm like, no notes.
No, I meant like, because like we're nearing the end. I
Oh
like,
yes.
honestly, like, I cannot believe it's been an hour and a half. I feel like
Oh my
we've
gosh.
been talking for 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
but no, my question is like around that final like send off question, where it's like, because
Mm.
that's the more what I'm asking, because it's
The
like,
brand piece. You want to know
yeah,
like
yeah,
my
like what,
personal brand.
yeah, like what, and also like what is your opinion of, or your thoughts around like that as a final question? Because you are a
Oh,
story producer, so maybe I worded it too wrong, but
as a story producer, I would probably move this question.
okay.
I would probably put it closer to the top. I mean, as we've talked about through mine, I guess my brand or my motto is, gay it forward in
Hmm.
everything we do. And I use the word gay, but I mean it as a broad spectrum queerness of across all to as LGBTQIA plus acronym. But I just mean gay it forward as in when you're going to get a haircut, where are you getting it? When you're booking a DJ, where are you booking them? When you're going to a small town, where do you go get a drink? I think that there's so much that we can do in terms of how we support each other, that's not necessarily about being in the parade, that actually have meaningful lasting impact into queer lives. Searching out artists, searching out people that we can work to support in every which way possible.
Hmm.
I don't think we've seen the worst of what's coming. I don't. I think we're just warming up, to be honest. Anyway, going back to the question, which was, I think you'll see when you look back in this, you'll see that everything was in my life about getting it forward,
Yeah.
and everything kind of calls it back to what that brand was, which is, how I choose to live my life every day. Kindness is a currency.
I just want to thank you so much. This has been so refreshing. I'm so happy that we've reconnected. It
Me
was a couple
too.
years in the middle where, you know, like COVID happened
Well,
and it
yeah,
was
we
what it
almost
is.
we almost died, so yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
so I just thank you so much for taking the time to taking part in this project. This has been a passion project for me, and anybody who has said yes, I've just been so like warmed by that want to do it. And I'm just so excited for what you're going to be doing, what you're working on right now. I think that there's a lot of more. Recently, a guest of mine said there's a lot more runway ahead of us for what
100%.
we're doing.
I'm really excited. I am actually a project I've got coming up. I've developed a new TV series format in the unscripted space, and it looks as though I've built a little island, a little magnificent little crew of folks who want to go and see it happen. And so we are going to see if we can potentially film a pilot or even a pilot season this summer. And so, if anything, I want to leave on the note of you don't know what you can do until you do it,
100%.
and if there's anything I can leave you with is like just do it. Like I for years, even after cancer I lost my voice. Um, and I used to tour. I don't know if you know this or not, but I used to tour professionally as a singer prior. I did Canadian Idol. I was a contestant. That's actually was my first time in reality TV. I was a contestant
Stop.
on a reality show in a singing competition. And so, but like I stopped singing. And after cancer, I always kind of doubted myself as to like, is it good enough? And why now? And all of these things. And, even like getting on stage has been difficult. And I came from a theater background and kind of putting myself on stage and having people look at me that way has all been different. But recently I started getting into, I got into improv class. I took an improv class just to kind of start dusting off those cobwebs.
Hmm.
And what I can say is like, there's nothing better than proving yourself wrong.
Yes.
And in a world of imposter syndrome, I think it's important that we prove ourselves wrong daily. Just do it. Just go for it, and go for it in a way that you will be proud of in the end. That you can not only be proud of yourself, but you're proud of your actions and be proud of what you put into the world, including the kindness that we give each other every day.
You're the best, honestly.
You're the
This is
best.
so inspiring. I love it. I can't wait to see you next week.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Well, a big hug for sure.
If anybody listening would like to get in touch with you, want to contact you online, work with you, like where can they find you?
Honestly, Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me. You can find me at queer.as.yolk, like queer as folk, but breakfast. I'm a huge fan of brunch. So queer as yolk, you can find me there. LinkedIn, Danny Papadatos. In Her Shoes Productions is kind of what I kind of is my DBA name, but find me through my handles. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
And to anybody who's looking to reach out to me and talk about branding, you can reach out to me through geographic.com. Follow the podcast on Spotify, give a like on YouTube, subscribe. And I want to,
Can I say
yeah,
one more thing?
yeah, absolutely.
I do want to say one last thing I want to say is I am looking to build a world of people that want to help each other, and that includes in TV production. And so
Hmm.
I am open to mentorship, and I think I do want to just put this out there as a public call of like to say, I if I have time, when I have time, if you have questions and there's anything I can do to support, or there's people that I can put you in touch with, I am that person that is happy to help when and where I can. In that same light, I do plan to also offer mentorship opportunities further down the road, and so if people are interested, please feel free to reach out.
I love it. And he'll do just that. I can vouch for that.
You're the best.
So are you. Okay, I'm gonna do my
Do
my
your
hand
exit thing.
again.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. And to anybody who'd like to reach out to me to talk about branding or design, you can contact me through geographic.com. Follow the podcast on Instagram. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment, a review. It would really help me out with the algorithm. And Danny, once again, I want to thank you so much. And goodbye.
Thanks, Gio. Thanks for having me. I hope this was helpful for some folks out there who just really, I don't know, wanted to get to perv on my life a little bit. But yeah, I hope this worked out for everyone.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
I
Okay,
love it.
bye.
Bye. I'm taking off my headphones.